Initial probe shows Lebanon pagers booby-trapped with explosives. Malaysia ratifies UK's accession into Trans-Pacific Trade Deal. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Now, the Malaysian Armed Forces ATM confirmed all personnel in the recent incident involving two Malaysian Battalion 85011 Malbat 85011 vehicles which were attacked by civilians in Lebanon are all safe and uninjured. Now, according to a statement by ATM, the altercation occurred on Wednesday at approximately 11:32 p.m. Malaysian time while the troops were returning to Maracah camp after completing a mission. A group of nearly 30 civilians attempted to stop the Malabat vehicles, throwing rocks and puncturing tires with sharp objects. The statement explained that in order to prevent further escalation, the movement commander instructed the vehicles to pull over safely and remain inside while awaiting assistance. The Lebanon Armed Forces responded promptly, arriving at the scene to control the situation before a loader facilitated the safe return of the vehicles and personnel back to Maracah camp. An initial investigation by Lebanese authorities has found that handheld devices that exploded this week were booby-trapped before they entered the country. Lebanon's mission to the United Nations blamed Israel for the attacks and said they were detonated by sending emails to the devices. The blast that killed 37 people and wounded nearly 3,000 over 2 days targeted communication devices used by the Iran-backed Hezbollah group. Pagers and walkie-talkies exploded as their users were shopping in supermarkets, walking on streets and attending funerals, plunging the country into panic. Israel has not commented on the operation, but has said it will widen the scope of its war in Gaza to include the Lebanon front. Lebanon's mission said the attack was unprecedented in its brutality and compromised diplomatic efforts to halt fighting in Gaza and South Lebanon. It called on the UN Security Council to condemn the attack ahead of an emergency session planned for today to discuss the blasts. Hezbollah is an ally of Hamas group, which has been fighting in a war in Gaza since 7th October last year. The focus of Israel's firepower has been on Gaza, but its troops have also been engaged in near-daily clashes with Hezbollah along its northern border. On a related note, the two-way radios that exploded across Lebanon on Wednesday may not have been genuine products. According to Director of Wireless Communications Product Manufacturer ICOM, Ishiki Inomoto, said it was his personal view that the devices which resembled his firm's model IC-V82 walkie-talkie were counterfeit, but added that the company was unable to say for certain. The handheld radios were purchased by Hezbollah 5 months ago, around the same time as a shipment of pagers that detonated on Tuesday. Sources said Israeli spies remotely detonated explosive they planted in a Hezbollah order of 5,000 pagers before they entered Lebanon. But unlike pagers, whose Taiwanese maker Gold Apollo has said were manufactured by a Budapest-based licensee, ICOM's products are all produced at the company's facility in Japan. Inomoto said this means they cannot have been interfered with prior to shipping, as ICOM has a robotic production line which he described as very fast, so there is no time to set up an explosive device. Palestinian authorities. In a related development, at least 6 Palestinians were killed and 18 others injured by Israeli forces during a military raid in the occupied West Bank city of Qabatia. The governor of Jenin, Kamal Abu al-Rub, said 4 of the injured are in critical condition and that Israeli forces withdrew from Qabatia after destroying infrastructure in the area. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military. Violence has surged in the West Bank since the start of the war in Gaza, with almost daily sweeps by Israeli forces that have involved thousands of arrests and regular gun battles between security forces and Palestinian fighters. Palestinian Authorities President Mahmoud Abbas has invited UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and other leaders to visit the Gaza Strip. During his first visit to Madrid after Spain recognized a Palestinian state, Abbas invited international authorities to join him on a visit to the Gaza Strip to see the impact of Israel's military actions on the area.
وقد أعلنا من أجل ذلك أننا سنتوجه إلى قطاع غزة مع القيادة الفلسطينية ومن يحب مثل الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة ومن يرغب من ممثلي الدول والمنظمات الدولية، وستبقى أولويتنا وقف العدوان على شعبنا وأرضنا ومقدساتنا.
Abbas was hosted by Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who reiterated his support to the two-state solution to reach sustainable peace. Both leaders expressed their concern over a possible scale of violence in the area following the attacks on armed group Hezbollah's communications equipment in Lebanon. Abbas also called for an international peace conference in Madrid. The second round of vaccination campaign to protect 640,000 children in Gaza against polio will also deliver micronutrients, essential vitamins and minerals, and conduct nutritional screening. UNICEF's Deputy Executive Director Ted Chambon said discussions are also underway about the feasibility of adding further vaccinations to the campaign, including measles immunization. The first round of the polio vaccination campaign, which began on September 1st, reached its target of 90% of children under 10 years of age. It was carried out in phases over 2 weeks during the humanitarian pauses in the fighting between Israel and Hamas. A second round of the polio vaccinations has to be carried out within 4 weeks.
We need a ceasefire. We have consistently indicated that this is essential to end the killing and maiming of children and enabling the urgent delivery and desperately needed life-saving aid and the unconditional release of hostages, especially the 2 BBS children. In the absence of a ceasefire, we need the kind of pauses that allowed for the polio campaign to be successful, but we need a ceasefire.
Russian President Vladimir Putin visited an enterprise for the production of drones and means of electronic warfare in St. Petersburg. Putin, who was accompanied by several officials, including Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov, inspected the factory and was shown different kinds of drones and other production. Putin said that Russia was ramping up drone production by around 10 times to nearly 1.4 million this year to ensure the Russian armed forces grab victory in Ukraine. Since Russia sent tens of thousands of soldiers into Ukraine in February 2022, the war has largely been a story of grinding artillery and drone strikes along a heavily fortified 1,000-kilometer front involving hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Both Russia and Ukraine have bought drones abroad and ramped up their own production for a range of targets, from destroying artillery and arsenals to striking at energy infrastructure and battleships. Outgoing NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has cautioned the United States and Europe against isolationism in his parting speech as Donald Trump vies to return to the White House.
Thank you so much, Ian. We must never take the bond between Europe and North America for granted. NATO is not written in stone. It is a result of deliberate choices and political will. We have heard voices on both sides of the Atlantic calling for America and Europe to part ways. Focusing on short-sighted national interests over longer-term cooperation will not serve us well. Isolationism will not keep anyone safe.
The warning comes as Washington's allies fret that former President Donald Trump could loosen the commitment of key power of the United States to NATO if he wins the election in November. Trump has rattled European countries by saying the United States could stop protecting NATO members that do not spend enough on defense. Stoltenberg is set to hand over the reins of the Western military alliance to former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte next month after a tumultuous 10 years. During that time, he has helped oversee a major increase in defense spending from European members, spurred by pressure from Washington and, more importantly, Russia's war on Ukraine. Still ahead, EU recognizes Maduro rival as Venezuela president. Malaysia has officially ratified the United Kingdom's accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP. This is a significant milestone as it is effectively Malaysia's first bilateral free trade agreement with the UK. The Investment, Trade and Industry Ministry said Malaysia joins Japan, Singapore, Chile, New Zealand, Vietnam and Peru in the ratification process. The UK's entry into the CPTPP will swell the combined gross domestic product GDP value of the bloc to $15.1 trillion, or 15% of the global GDP. The ministry said the ratification allows Malaysian exports to benefit from immediate duty-free treatment on 94% of tariff lines, particularly for palm oil, cocoa, rubber, electric and electronics, chemicals, as well as machinery and equipment. The agreement is expected to enter into force by end of 2024 for the UK and countries that have ratified it. The European Parliament has passed a resolution recognizing Venezuelan opposition candidate Edmundo González Urrutia as the country's legitimate president after incumbent Nicolás Maduro claimed victory in a disputed election. González Urrutia, who has fled to Spain, claims he was the winner of the July presidential election that gave Maduro a third six-year term, a claim recognized by the United States. So far, however, Spain and other European Union nations have limited themselves to refusing to accept Maduro as the victory and calling on the Venezuelan government to release the voting tally sheets. The lawmakers who passed the resolution by 309 votes for the 201 against also urged the 27-nation bloc to impasse sanctions on Maduro and his inner circle. González Urrutia thanked the European Parliament for the vote, calling it the recognition of the sovereign will of the people of Venezuela. The vote is, however, non-binding and does not reflect the stance of EU countries. France's Prime Minister Michel Barnier sought to end months of political deadlock by submitting a proposed new cabinet to President Emmanuel Macron, featuring new faces in most of the key offices of the state. While there appeared to be no major surprise or big name entrance into the cabinet, it seemed to mark a tilt to the right from the previous more centrist government. A source close to Macron's political faction said Barnier is proposing Europe Minister Jean-Noël Barrot as Foreign Minister. The move would be a major promotion for the 41-year-old, whose slick media appearances have impressed observers, but he would face the challenge of boosting France's presence on the international stage. Meanwhile, Bruno Retailleau, who heads the faction of the right wing, the Republicans in France's upper house Senate, is to take on the Interior Ministry. Landing the Interior Ministry, which oversees the police and domestic security, would be seen as a major success for the right. One key person said to be staying on is Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, who is believed to enjoy a close and trusting relationship with Macron. The Premier's office said the list is a government ready to act in the service of the French people. Irish police have arrested 19 people in Dublin after anti-immigration protesters blocked the main bridge in the capital for hours at peak traffic time. Without giving further details, police said after clearing the protesters, a total of 19 arrests were made while no injuries were reported. The bridge blockade during the evening rush hour followed a march by the around 500 anti-immigration protesters through central Dublin in the Irish Parliament. Security prevented the marches from approaching the gates of Parliament, which reopened yesterday after summer recess. Ireland has been seeing rising anti-immigration sentiment in recent years. Last November, central Dublin was engulfed by riots incited by far-right social media accounts, followed a knife attack on school children by an Irish citizen from an immigrant background. The Irish government has been grappling with a surge in asylum seeker arrivals into Ireland amid a long-running housing shortage. According to government data, the number of people seeking asylum in Ireland rose to more than 10,500 in the first 6 months of this year, nearly double the rate in the same period last year. Mpox vaccines have been administered in Africa for the first time, with several hundred high-risk individuals vaccinated in Rwanda. The first 300 doses were administered near the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been the worst affected country, with nearly 22,000 cases and more than 700 deaths linked to the virus between January and August. Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director General Jean Kaseya said vaccination would start in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the first week of October. The World Health Organization last week pre-qualified an Mpox vaccine for the first time, paving the way for the United Nations and other international agencies to procure them. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned in a briefing that they were not dealing with one outbreak, but several in different places caused by different strains.
I say outbreaks, plural, because it's important to remember that we are not dealing with one outbreak, but with several, caused by different strains or clades of the virus in different places. The most concerning is the outbreak of clade 1b in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Burundi, where cases are continuing to increase.
There has been a total of 29,152 cases and 738 deaths across 15 countries on the continent. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced 10 billion euros in funds for member nations reeling from heartbreaking devastation after floods caused by Storm Boris. Von der Leyen spoke in the Polish city of Wrocław alongside the leaders of 4 countries from the flood-hit region. She said the European Union had 2 sources, cohesion funds and the Solidarity Fund, that it could use to help with funding to repair and reconstruct the damage.
These are extraordinary times, and extraordinary times need extraordinary measures. At first sight, 10 billion euros are possible to mobilize from the cohesion funds for the countries that are affected. This is an emergency reaction now.
The EU chief met with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, his Czech counterpart Petr Fiala, Slovakia's Robert Fico, and Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer. Tusk said that Poland would receive half of the cohesion funds announced by von der Leyen. Fiala meanwhile said the Czech Republic would receive 2 billion euros. According to Nehammer, Austria's share will be 500 million euros. It was unclear how much money would go to Slovakia and to Romania, whose prime minister did not attend the talks in Poland because his office said he had a defense meeting. Houses and businesses and streets in the Hungarian towns of Virose and Kismaros were inundated with flood waters as the river Danube's waters rose. Hungarian soldiers built sandbag flood defenses in Kismaros, while one resident of Virose said this year was the 3rd in a row that flooding had hit the town. Earlier in the week, Prime Minister Viktor Orban visited the village of Kismaros, north of Budapest, on the banks of the Dunave, to see how preparations for rising waters were taking shape. In the capital Budapest, the Dunave is still expected to peak around or slightly above 8.5 meters, likely today or tomorrow. The worst floods to hit Central Europe in at least 2 decades have left a trail of destruction from Romania to Poland. It spread mud and debris in towns, destroyed bridges, submerged cars, and left authorities and households with a bill for damages that will run into billions of dollars. Next up in sports, Selangor FC hold Muang Thong United 2 away draw. The Harama Malaya squad have climbed up to 2 spots to 132 in the world based on the latest FIFA World Ranking. Head coach Pau Marti Viencente's team had accumulated 1,117.64 points to move up from the 134th position they occupied since 18th July. The Malaysian football team achieved this after ending an 11-year drought by emerging as champions of the 2024 Merdeka tournament, which was also participated by defending champions Tajikistan, Lebanon and the Philippines. However, Malaysia find themselves still away behind other Southeast Asian nations such as world numbers 116 Vietnam and world number 100 Thailand. As for the Asian zone, the 5 top teams are Japan, followed by Iran, South Korea, Australia and Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, 2022 World Cup winners Argentina remained at number 1 in the world, followed by France, Spain, England and Brazil. Selangor FC began their Asian Football Confederation AFC Champions League 2 campaign with a 1-all away draw against Thailand's Muang Thong United FC in Group H. Both teams failed to break the deadlock in the first half of the match, played at the Raja Mangala Stadium in Bangkok. The Red Giants, however, drew first blood just 2 minutes after the restart through Ronnie Fernandez. Stunned, the home team piled on the pressure to equalize through Purachet Todsanit in the 54th minute. Selangor, under the guidance of coach Muhammad Nizam Jamil, will take on Cebu FC of the Philippines in their second Group H match at the Petaling Jaya City Council Stadium on October 3rd. Germany's Invincibles, Bayern Leverkusen, opened their Champions League campaign with a resounding 4-0 away win over Feyenoord after running riot in the first half. Leverkusen, who became the first team to finish a Bundesliga season unbeaten as they robbed to the title last campaign, were ahead in the opening 5 minutes as Florian Ritz took advantage of a defensive slip by Ramiz Zuki to open their account. Dutch international Jeremy Frimpong then set up the next 2 goals with his strong running down the right flank, carving up the home defense. The first was for Alejandro Grimaldo in the 30th minute, with some help from a clever pass by Victor Boniface, and the next a precision cross to the back post to find Ritz flying in to convert unchallenged in the 36th minute. Just when it seemed it could not get worse for the Dutch side, Leverkusen went 4 up on the stroke of half-time. A free kick found centre-back Edmund Tapsoba at the back post as his header back into the danger zone struck Feyenoord keeper Timon Wellenbrota on the foot, and it ricocheted slowly backwards over the line for an own goal. The Germans are home to AC Milan in their next Champions League encounter, while Feyenoord will play in Spain at Girona. In another match, a late header by defender Jose Maria Jimenez gave Atletico Madrid a 2-1 win over RB Leipzig in their Champions League opener. Atletico pressed Leipzig from the start, but a mistake by midfielder Rodrigo de Paul in the 4th minute handed the visitors the counter-attack that put them in the lead. the Argentine lost possession to Benjamin Sesko, who burst up the pitch in a quick move that caught Atletico's defense out of position. Luis Openda took the ball from the right, firing the edge of the box, which goalkeeper Jan Oblak brilliantly denied with a one-hand save. But Sesko was quicker than defender Robin Lenormand to the rebound and headed into an empty net. The goal did not change the game's momentum as the hosts kept piling on the pressure, creating several chances until Antoine Griezmann found the equalizer in the 28th minute. A quick counter was started by Angel Correa, who found Marcos Llorente on the right wing, and his cross was volleyed into the top corner by Griezmann. After several more chances, the Frenchman forced Leipzig goalkeeper Peter Gulacsi into a one-handed save to deny a close-range header in the 79th minute, but he ended up assisting his teammate Gimenez near full-time to give Atletico a deserving win. Meanwhile, Arsenal goalkeeper David Raya secured his side a hard-earned point with a sensational penalty save in a goalless draw away to Atlanta in their Champions League opener. It was a gritty display by Mikel Arteta's side, who soaked up home pressure inside a ruckus Stadio de Bergamo and occasionally looked dangerous at the other end. The closest Arsenal came to scoring was a first-half free kick by Bukayo Saka that was saved well by Atlanta goalkeeper Barco Carnesecchi, who also kept out Thomas Partey's follow-up. Gabriel Martinelli also blasted over the crossbar in a rare Arsenal attack after the break. Atalanta were handed the chance to go ahead when Partey tangled with Ederson on the edge of the area, and the referee Clement Turpin pointed to the spot. After a lengthy VAR check, Matteo Retegui eventually took the kick, but his low shot was read by Raya, who then showed elastic-like agility to make a double save. Spaniard Raya divided low to his right to beat out Retegui's spot kick in the 51st minute, then sparring across his goal to claw away the forward's follow-up header. Arsenal were not at their best, but made sure they returned to London with a point in the bag, thanks to exploits of Raya, who is now established as the club's first-choice keeper. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, initial probe shows Lebanon pagers booby-trapped with explosives. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Otto Othman. Malaysia Madani, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.